Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be comparing rates. Here's our situation. Mrs. Condrick, Mr. Ragg, and Miss Woodruff are all training for the PPIE Fun Run. Each is tracking their time and they want to see who is running the fastest. So we are going to order the teachers from fastest to slowest. The problem is they didn't all keep track of their time the same way. Mr. Ragg used a table to keep track of his training time. Mr. Ragg used a graph to keep track of his training time, while Miss Condrick used a table to keep track of hers, and Miss Woodruff made an equation to keep track of her training time. So it's kind of hard to compare the three teachers' training times if they are all in different formats. So let's see if we could get them all into the same format. And in this case, I'm going to choose to get them all into the format of unit rate. I think unit rate is generally a fairly easy way to compare. So let's take another look at Mr. Ragg's graph. If I see some of these points here, this point here is 2 miles and 14 minutes, right? So that would be 2, 14. This point here, 4 miles, 28 minutes. And then the last point I have is 5 miles to 35 minutes. So let's put those all on the table. Here I have my table, but I don't have a unit rate, because my unit rate I would want to do minutes per mile or per 1 mile. So I need to figure out if Mr. Ragg can run 2 miles in 14 minutes, how far he can run in how long it takes him, to run just 1 mile. So looking at my table, I want to get from 2 to 1, so I would have to divide that by 2. I would then also have to divide my minutes by 2, because remember, in order to keep your rates or your ratios equivalent, you have to multiply or divide every number in your rate or ratio by the same number. So the unit rate I get for Mr. Ragg is 7 minutes per 1 mile. Of course, we could also say that's just 7 minutes per mile. Now let's look at Miss Condrick's. For Miss Condrick, we already have a table, but we don't have unit rate. So I again want to get to unit rate. So I want to know how long it takes her to run just 1 mile. So I can use any part on my table, but I just like to go with the smallest number first. I want to go from 6 to 1. And in order to do that, I would have to divide that number by 6. So I also would need to divide my 39 by 6. Now that one's not as easy because 39 is not easily divisible by 6, but I can still divide that. Now that 6 will go into 39 6 times, but that's not even. 6 times 6 is just 36. Remainder of 3. Well, we're not going to deal with remainders anymore, so I'm going to just add the decimal after the 39. You can always add a decimal after any whole number. And I can always add zeros after any decimal without changing the value. 39 and 39.0 are the same value. So now I see 6 can go into 30 5 times, and that is even, right? There would be no remainder. Your decimal, when you're dividing, goes straight up. So the decimal was here, it goes straight up. So 39 divided by 6 is just 6.5. So Miss Condrick's unit rate is 6.5 minutes per mile. I'm going to look at Miss Woodruff's training. Her training was captured using an equation. So 9 times the number of miles equals time, or 9m equals t, because she has defined the variables here, where m equals number of miles and t equals time in minutes. So I think one way that I have found to understand the relationship between miles and time is just substitute something in. So I'm going to substitute 1 in for miles. If I substitute 1 in for the number of miles, then I get the time equals 9 minutes. I get the time equals 9 minutes. So when m equals 1, t equals 9. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a table also. When I substituted a 1 in for number of miles, I got 9 for my time in minutes. So here I already have the unit rate, because I already have the information for 1 mile. Now I could have put in any number for m, but putting in 1 because I'm looking for a unit rate made the most sense. So I get 9 minutes per mile. Now we have the unit rate for each of the three teachers. We should be able to compare the three teachers fairly easily. Looking at the unit rates, once again, Mr. Rags was 7 minutes per mile, Miss K's was 6.5 minutes per mile, and Miss Woodruff's was 9 minutes per mile. It's very easy to compare from fastest to slowest. Remember, the fastest will have the least amount of minutes per mile. So Mrs. K is the fastest, while Miss Woodruff is the slowest. So we were able to order the teachers from fastest to slowest by finding their unit rate.